All right, people, here we go. It's 10 o'clock. We're rocking and rolling. Thanks for a little bit of patience here as we get started. But guys, another incredible group and panel that we're going to bring to you guys today, all around lead gen for listings. One of the things that I've noticed and recognized is, in a tight inventory market, and we know, the name of the game is leads, listings, and leverage. And in Milwaukee, where you make 60% more commission on a listing than you do on a buyer side, and we know that all listings should have babies, we're just going to continue to hone in on this theme as we try and find ways to help you manufacture new listings in the marketplace in 2022 and beyond. So with that action-packed panel, I'm going to kick it off. A little bit of intros here, and I'm going to kick it off with Karen Trimble first. Karen, I always use you as a great example because you haven't been in this business. You're not a long-time seasoned established agent as many people may think you are. Give us a little bit about your background and how you got into it.
Sure. So I've been in business 8 years, joined Keller Williams from the start, started the incubation in Whitefish Bay, and kind of was looking for a passion in my later years in life as I raised kids. And I had not instant success, but success pretty quickly. And I think it was because of my life work of being on committees and school boards and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I've rose and built a team after a few years, and just, thankful to be in business with my team and great people, great brokerage that taught me a lot. So yeah, that's my story.
What Karen said is absolutely true. And this is why I use her as an example all the time. She had instant success. She's not going to tell you that. She had instant success. The reason why she had instant success was, Karen, when you came into KW, how big was your database right away from day one?
It was like 600 people or some, a big number, because being involved in a community, I know, as my kids say, Mom, why do you have to know someone everywhere we go? So.
Perfect. Love it. All right, flipping it over, Kevin Hinton. And the cool part about today's panel, guys, too, you're going to get some perspective out of Chicago, not just only based in southeastern Wisconsin, because there are some things that we can learn from the diversity of thought and diversity of approach of what these guys are doing to have massive success in Chicago. So, Kev, give these guys a quick, brief rundown. What's your backstory? What's your vitals?
Yeah. So real quick, I'm Kevin Hinton of the Phair Hinton Group, Chicago, Milwaukee. My lovely partner over there with laryngitis is Emily Phair, waving at the screen, but she's not going to do a whole lot of talking today. So I got it covered for us. Yeah. So Phair Hinton, I've been in the business about 6 years personally. Emily's been in about kind of 12 to 13. Phair Hinton came together about 5 years ago. We are started in Chicago. We launched our Milwaukee team about 18 months ago. So we cover both cities and kind of everywhere up and down, kind of from 30 miles south of Chicago to kind of the northwestern side of Milwaukee. There are 16 of us in total. We have 4 full-time admin. And so we were, pretty quick ramp up as well. I think we did about 90 million between the two markets last year, and maybe about 235 units or so. So that's the DNA.
Beautiful. Love it. Leafa is my kids call her, Leafa Champine. Leafa, what are your vitals? What do we need to know about you?
Been licensed since 2017, full-time, which will be 3 years in September. Started a team, kind of really took off the team about 6 months ago, I'd say. Kind of went into the business knowing I wanted to grow a team from the get-go. And doubled my business year after year from part-time, starting at 2.5 to I'm on pace to do about 20 to 30 million this year. So it's just kind of a continual growth. And yeah, started to focus on listings a little bit more this year, and it's proving to be successful so far.
Beautiful. All right, Karen, let's start with you. In a market like we're in now, and for someone who plays in a very high average price point, being out in Lake Country, right? We know that, less than 3% of the inventory is above 500,000. And we know that everybody's also chasing the inventory above 500,000, because who doesn't want to make a little bit more on one deal than chasing a handful of the smaller deals? How are you and your team approaching from a tactics and strategy standpoint to go shake the trees to find listings in an environment where listings are down 20 to 30% on any given month?
Sure. Well, as an example, 2 years ago before COVID, we were holding 18 listings. This year, I think we have 7 or 8 right now. They're all under contract. And I think having been a listing agent in the past has helped me maintain our listing status. So I work a lot on referrals, but we've kind of gone back to basics. So we're also a big social media team. We do a lot of postings on Facebook and Instagram, but about a year ago, kind of had a talk with my sister, our operations manager, and said, my group, I'll say, 50 and above, they're buying high, they're selling high, they want to downsize. I said, they're watching on social media, but they're not really going to connect on social media. I mean, I'll get a couple that will say, hey, I watch your business on social media, but we've kind of gone back to basics, sending out postcards, which we hadn't done for years. I mean, but more diligent, like every time we sell something, every time we list something, we're doing more of that mail and phone calls. So that's you have to kind of talk to your people, talk to your sphere, people that might have been thinking, like I've worked for some clients for 2 years. My Park Court listing was a 2-year development, and all of a sudden she's like, I'm ready to go. So staying in touch with the people and clients that you've had in the past, and knowing the age group where people are starting to downsize, and you kind of hear a little bit of, conversation, being present in your current sphere and listening to people. They all want to know about the market. And then when someone says, yeah, I'm just wondering, what should I do? You follow up. You don't just let that conversation go. I mean, you don't become a piranha. I mean, I don't want to be that agent, but within a day or two, I might just say, hey, it was interesting, our conversation. Do you want me to do a market analysis for you? I'll let you know where you stand, kind of equity you have in your house, what you're going to do possibly in the next couple of years. We had a client who moved 3 years early because of the market. They went into an apartment, because it is that high-end luxury is at an all-time high. So,
yeah. And well, guys, just so you guys know, I'm going to go back to Karen to go a little bit deeper into the luxury conversation. So stay tuned for that. But Karen, let me ask you this, and Kathy, I'm going to totally put you on the spot just because I can see you too. Talk about a little bit about your shift in strategy and the investment that you made in postcards, and why you find value in that strategy, and why you're making sure that you're being very consistent and diligent in the just listed, just sold approach from a postcard standpoint. Why did you do that?
I think we did that. I mean, really a little bit of like what Karen was talking about is that, social media is great for creating overall awareness, like in a broad sense within a sphere, because, we don't know who all is looking at our page and how those things are being shared with other people. But from a postcards perspective, what that is doing is it's telling the immediate neighbors in a specific community, with it, whether we do it within just that neighborhood or within a 1 mile radius of that neighborhood in a price point, it's telling them, hey, listen, we've listed your neighbor's home for sale. And we actually do 3. We do just, if we can do it fast enough, if it's a long enough close. I mean, there's some that it's a super fast close, so we can't get all 3 postcards out there, but we'll do the just listed postcard. They will do under contract postcard, and then we'll do the just closed postcard. And with the just closed postcard, that's at that point where we can tell them how much over list price this home is gone for. So and we do it very much in the, dear neighbor category. So it is, we kind of highlight the front of the postcard is that home. And then on the back is really more of like a personal letter, if you will, from each one of whichever our listing agent is. Obviously, all of our agents list properties. Some teams are a little bit different than that, but all of our agents are able to list properties. So we'll do it like a personal letter, if you will, on the back. And then we also highlight, 2 or 3 other homes in that community also that either were just sold, just listed, or under contract. So we're always, doing all 3 of those, the continuous touch. And like we know, I mean, you can look at real estate and statistics on a broad, like national level. You could look at it on a Milwaukee level. People really want to engage at a local level. They want to know, in my community, in my neighborhood, what have you done? And that's usually when the phone starts ringing.
Well, and Kathy, thanks for totally off the cuff, on the spot. What I love about what you guys heard is they're attacking their postcards with intensity and frequency. And that we know the highest return on investment of postcards is when you attack it with intensity and frequency. When you're inconsistent or your frequency is too drawn out, the impact you have on the dollars you spend on those postcards is minimal, right?
Yep.
It's the same thing as if, like, the first time I meet, let's just say Annie Jerzyk, the first time I meet Annie Jerzyk, I want to use Annie Jerzyk's name 100 times in the first 3 or 4 interactions, because if I don't use her name in the first 3 or 4 interactions, my memory or recall of those is so much lower. And guys, when you got to remember, last year in Milwaukee, it was something like 72% of all sellers only interviewed one agent. 92% of all sellers only interviewed 2 agents. So the intensity and frequency of the activities are what's important. That's why I wanted these guys to go into it. All right, Kev.
I do want to say just one quick thing about the postcards, just real quick. So we do use Command for the targeting, but unfortunately for us, like, Command does not have the 6x11 size yet in the postcard. So we create a template within Canva, a 6x11 template that we use, and we switch out photos, we switch out what the agents are. We've kind of got those boilerplates in Canva, and then we upload those into Command, and then we do the targeting through Real Mailers in Command, which is like an amazing, dollar. I mean, it's like so inexpensive to do it that way, and it does it very quickly. But just from that perspective too, we believe in doing a larger size postcard versus just the standard, smaller, like 4x5 ones.
Yeah.
So just, yeah.
Totally cool. And the other thing, guys, that I want you to hear is they're consistent, whether they sell a $2 million house or whether they sell a $500,000 house. It's not the $2 million house has to be prettier, nicer, and spend more money on the postcard or the materials. They're being consistent in their approach because it's intensity and frequency are what matters. And the more you mess with this stuff, the longer it takes to build these things out.
Okay, one more thing. I'm sorry. You asked me, and now I have to tell you I have to give it all away. Okay.
Right.
The other thing, okay, so that's listings, right? So people think, okay, well, it's easy. We're going to market our listings. We do the same thing, not on the, obviously under contract, but once a property is sold on the buy side, we either do one of two things. Number one, we either ask the listing agent for permission to use their photos, which we sometimes get. Sometimes we don't. If not, then we send a photographer out to grab just an exterior shot of that home, or, a few shots. And we just sold your neighbor's home, because we did. So you have a listing agent and you have a selling agent, and we technically did sell that home. So we do it also on the buy side. So there's untapped potential there. If you're not getting a lot of listings, is to turn around and say on the buy side is, hey, I just sold this home, your neighbor's home. I brought the buyer to this home. So
intensity and frequency within the geographies you play. Love it. Kathy, thank you for jumping in. Didn't even prep you for it. All right, Kev, what are you guys doing? The market in Chicago is very similar to Milwaukee, right? It's tight, inventory is low, things are moving fast, and yet your business grew exponentially last year. And I know the number of listings you guys took, and you came into a new market. What strategies are you and Emily implementing to pick up your listing inventory and build your business?
Yeah. So obviously I want more listings. Emily wants more listings. Our entire team wants more listings. So it's a hotbed topic amongst our team, right? So we're always talking about it. We actually kind of created a document last week, literally on this topic. Happy to share it if it's helpful to the screen, but literally like 7 things kind of in order that we think you can do to get listings. And we prioritize them in both their effectiveness and kind of the order that you should be doing them in. Okay. And so that's kind of how we got it organized. So number one is basically your Sphere referrals, right? Run a perfect 33 touch, add value to your people. Like, that's number one. That's our number one source for listings. Number two, our second highest source is agent referrals. So we run a very intense 33 touch for all of our broker agents across the country. That has always been our second biggest source of listing referrals. So as we're talking to our team, we basically have those first 2 handled for our team. And so where Emily and I are talking, we're talking to our team, it's like you have to prioritize those 2. And then as you work down to the other 5, and there's more than 7, number 3 is in order that you should do it, and kind of in terms of the ROI is all your cold lead gen. So FSBOs, cancels, expireds, right? Those are people that have raised 1 hand looking to sell, or maybe 2 hands that are looking to sell, right? The 4th is circle prospecting. all types of circle prospecting around a listing, whether you're talking calls or postcards or whatever, or just general circle prospecting. The fifth one we have documented is golden letters, right? We all kind of know what those are, kind of around your listings. And then kind of 6 and 7 are a little bit more vague, but the sixth one we say is diversify. Diversify the type of people you're talking to and the type of homes and products, right? And it ties a little bit into number 7, is where it's like, talk to your sellers. And what that means is, like, in your social media and in your conversations, is talk in a way to target listings. So I'm never going to post something about interest rates on my social media because I'm not talking to buyers. Most likely I'm not, right? I'm going to talk from a seller's perspective. What if somebody's a seller out there and they see this, I want something to resonate with them. So when it's either diversifying, and when we talk about diversifying, it's like all types of areas and products. So multi-units, investment properties, people downsizing, people first time, school district sellers, all just don't talk to the same type of people every single time, because now you might have an inventory. So the broader, group of people you hit, you're just going to find more listings. So that's how we talk about it on our team. And then in that order is kind of how we tackle it.
What I love, it's a system. We talk, guys, if you want to scale your business, we talk about systems and models. Okay, great. How did he come in? How did Emily come into Milwaukee? And people who really, quite frankly, didn't live here, weren't from the community, were trying to build their business, and yet they did about, 12 to 15 million in Milwaukee in the last 12 months. How did they do it? They have a 7-step process to how they're going to get listings, and they are consistent in their approach, whether it's Chicago or Milwaukee. The other thing, Kev, that I loved you talked about is number 7. And I think that's vitally important. And I think some people, what you put out into the universe ultimately is what you're going to attract. And if all you put out into the universe is, oh my God, I don't know, let's just say low inventory, or buyers are beware, or interest rates are rising. And if all you're doing is talking to buyers, and all of a sudden you're going to look up one day and say, all I do is attract buyers, because that's all who you're talking to. I love that you're thinking and phrasing the way around your messaging to message towards sellers. Cool. All right, Leafa, what are you doing, right? You've doubled your business year over year over year, and you're focusing far more on listings. What is it from a tactics and strategy standpoint? What are you implementing to secure more listings and doubling your business in an environment where inventory is down 25%?
I just stopped talking to people that didn't own a home. No, I'm just kidding. But kind of not. If and as I'm coaching like the members on my team and stuff too, I like, let's get intentional about who we're talking to and where our time is going. We all have the same amount of minutes during the day, and kind of like Kevin said, and you just said, if we want listings, that's what we need to focus on. So if we're going to take, if we have an hour to take somebody in our sphere out for coffee, and there's 2 people and one doesn't own a home and one has owned a home for 3 to 5 years, like, pick and choose who you're kind of connecting with that day, and prioritize from that. The other thing I've done is, I've always been really buyer heavy, but now I've hit the age where all of my sphere is upsizing from their kind of either first or second home into kind of their more forever home, or their parents are downsizing. But they all have something to buy and sell. And a lot of them are sitting there in that point of like, I don't know where to go because I'm stuck. There's nowhere to go. So what I've been doing is I've gotten really intentional about having conversations with my clients' lenders and saying, hey, run the numbers as if they don't have their current mortgage. So I throw out a real low ball number as if we were to sell their house, say it would sell for, CMAs for like 400. I have their lender run numbers as if they sold it for 300. So then they're able to see a number that if we get your house on the market today and under contract, your purchasing power grows exponentially because they're all pre-approved. My sphere is pre-approved to buy without a home sale contingency, but that means that their purchase price is based on a second home. So I'm calling their lenders and saying, I don't want the purchase price estimate based on a second home. I want them to see their purchasing power as if they don't have their current mortgage. And so I've done it almost as a gift. I've called their lenders and say, hey, they're not going to have this conversation because they're nervous. They know that, they're kind of stuck. They don't want to buy and sell right now at the same time. So can you just show them what they can afford? Then I start showing them MLS listings at their new purchase price without their current mortgage. And all of a sudden they're like, boom, let's sell our house. So that's really what I've been doing lately to get people to kind of move forward, is enticing them with their new home after they've sold. And that's helped me kind of like open the dam, I guess I'd say, on getting the sign in the yard and moving forward with listings first.
You're getting them excited to where they're going, that they start
Exactly.
focusing so much and fixating on the future about their future life and their future home, that the obstacle of listing their home and the disruption and everything else actually becomes easy because they've already mentally and emotionally moved forward.
And then I'm hearing, because a lot of them are friends of friends, or, you know, kind of have the same social circle. I'm hearing that they're having conversations. You know, I'll go show one of my buyers, for instance, is friends with one of my sellers. And she's like, oh my God, like, I can't believe they're going to sell their house for that much, which means they're sitting around in social settings having conversations of like, our agent said we're going to sell our house for like $500,000. Like, we bought it at 3. Oh my God. And then all of a sudden everyone's hearing like, wait a minute, I was only planning on buying at 4. If I can sell my house for that much more, then I can actually buy what I want and be competitive. And so, yeah, they're getting excited. And then all of a sudden the Sphere referrals start rolling in, because now it's like they're excited about their profit. And then they're excited about, you know, what they're buying.
Well, it's leveraging data. And I think Kathy talked about this in their postcard, is leveraging data to tell your story is really powerful. Why? Because data removes subjectivity. And so it's not, oh my gosh, my agent has the best, it's what's the data say and how are you utilizing the data to remove subjectivity, to remove emotion from the process.
Well, and then my MAPS coach used the phrase with coaching to market. So then it's using the data to coach them to market of like, okay, let's get you ready to list today and start working on the listing. So then as we're getting, you know, then they're still focused on where they're going and they're excited about that. But I'm actually working with them, like Karen said, up to months in advance, you know, even a year, to like kind of just get them ready. And then anytime something that they want to buy is, we're ready to go.
Totally. Awesome. All right, Karen, I'm flipping back to you. Fast paced here. Ready?
Okay.
Managing client expectations in the luxury space, right? I think that a lot of agents get overwhelmed or think, oh my gosh, they get a little bit of the imposter syndrome. Talk a little bit more about managing client expectations within the luxury space and how your team implements their systems or models from a communication standpoint in order for you to really have earned your spot within the luxury space. What does that look like and how do you manage it?
Well, you know, first off, we are a high performing team. And so having an operations manager, we do have a transaction coordinator, and we did hire a listing coordinator this past year who also helps us with all of our staging. So we make that introduction right away. They know that we're a team and that we have, people that are going to help that transaction along the way. But the one other thing that is something that's important, but I had to learn to do, is kind of let go of the transaction a little bit and let those people do their job, but to also stay in touch. So with the client, because it's important that they still feel like yes, you want to hand them off to a high performing transaction, but real estate is very personal. And a lot of my clients are personal friends or people that I know, and so making sure that they're getting the high touch from my coordinators, and also kind of checking in with them to make sure that they feel good and that it isn't just a transaction. Because my coordinators, they'll talk to them and they'll email them, but they don't really know them like they know me. So that's been one of the things that I've had to let go of, to let that happen so I can do other things, but also to remember to stay kind of in touch as we're progressing through a transaction. Yeah,
I think, guys, what I want you to hear in this is, and I'm not telling everybody's going to go invest in a listing coordinator. What I want you to hear is, Karen, in a market that is down 25%, is investing resources into her processes to ensure that her listing processes are so airtight that she manages the relationship with the client, and that the client feels as if the process of the transaction is so airtight, she has it under control, right? And she's making an investment in a down market, right? She's making a bet into her future business, which is what ultimately she's going to attract because of her processes and the relationship she has with the client. Karen, and this is more of an insight, and I'm just going to share a little bit. Last week, guys, I was out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we were meeting with a bunch of real estate agents and teams out there. Average price in Jackson Hole, Wyoming is $5 million. Okay, $5 million. We met with a team whose average price point was $23 million. Okay, and Karen, I'm more so looking for you to confirm or deny this. Because what I'm trying to do is remove the imposter syndrome for people who feel as if they can't go after the luxury market. Is the team last week in Jackson Hole, who had an average price point of $23 million, they said, listen, Charlie, selling a $23 million home is actually selling easier than selling $1 million home in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, because they said that the people who buy these real estate have bought and purchased real estates. They're familiar with the transactions. They understand the process and everything else. They want the relation, they want the personal connection and relationship, and that we know that we take the process off the plate. So the transaction is actually easier. Would you confirm? I mean, would you feel that it's a pretty similar sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, well, what I'm going to say is probably everybody knows because we all live in Wisconsin. I mean, even people in Waukesha County, there is a lot of wealth here, but they're still super conservative. Mm-hmm. So I do think that it's probably easier because of what you said about multiple transactions, but I still think most of our clients are still pretty, and I don't want to,
conservative.
They're fiscally conservative. So they're still going to want, you know, the best deal, you know, as far as getting their house sold and, you know, just that process. So I would say we're not exactly the same as Jackson Hole, but what I believe is that, like, I never want to be defined as a luxury agent because past year, one of our stabling, or one of our kind of mid-range properties that kept us in the market were homes of our clients' parents in that 250, 300 range, even though my average price point is 650 and above. You know, we helped, and my children's friends are now buying. So I don't ever want them to think that I am not there for those two bookends of a life, right? The beginning and the end. It. So, yeah.
I'm going to tie that into what Kevin and Emily's document. Number 6 on their document. Can anybody tell me what number 6 was?
Diversify.
Diversify your database and your approach. You can't be a one-size-fits-all real estate agent. Why? 72% of the homes in southeastern Wisconsin sold for less than $350K, right? So you have to be a one-size-fits-all approach, whether you're selling $1 million home or a $100,000 home. All right, Kev, Emily, either one jump in here. And Kev, I'll let you kind of steer the ship on where you want to take it. I know Kevin's worked in the sports and entertainment world. He's had a lot of clients in the sports and entertainment space that are buying luxury properties in Chicago. Talk a little bit more around managing expectations, either in the luxury space, or feel free to take it more deeper in terms of the tactics of what you do to attract those sorts of clients.
Yeah, well, to attract them is one, but circling back for a second, when it comes to when you actually have listing appointments, and whether it's a luxury listing or whatever, the most important thing is ask tons and tons and tons of questions and find out what is the most important thing to them, right? I could walk into some listing, in Lake Country, some beautiful house on lake, and I start talking about drones and this and that and this unbelievable market, and that isn't remotely their pain point, right? It might not be remotely about what their net is, right? So you can't, one size doesn't fit all. You can't say, hey, a luxury agent, a luxury seller, this is what's important to them. Or somebody who's got a $250,000 house, so you just have to ask enough questions, because if you assume, you're probably going to be wrong. You might find some common denominators, but who knows what is most important to that person. To kind of circle back to that, to attract. So what's your actual question? To attract luxury? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you've been in this business all that long,
yeah.
And you've worked your way into what I would consider to be somewhat of a niche market of kind of that sports and entertainment world. Talk about a little bit how you attracted that clientele and your vibe attracts your tribe. So what does that look like?
Well, I would say a few things is you got to remember that like we have all had so many firsts, right? You sold your first $500,000 house, your first $1 million house, you sold your first professional athlete, you sold your first investment property that you didn't really know what you were doing. Like everybody's had their first. If a $20 million house pops up, that would clearly be my first, right? So you have to be comfortable before you've actually done it, right? You just have to have inner belief that you're comfortable, because when push comes to shove, sorry, my Zoom is going all over the place. None of us are curing cancer here. So let's all just relax a little bit. And so anyways, so you got to have some confidence before you've done it. You got to ask lots and lots of questions. And then really what we try to do is control the conversation. You want to find out what's most important to them, but the one with like the most facts and the most data and whatnot, they tend to win, right? If you can come in there super prepared with lots of information, then rarely do they then say, well, what's the most expensive house you've ever sold? Or have you ever done it? You've sold in this area, right? If you're kind of sitting there like with deer in the headlights with not a lot of data, not a lot of information, then they will think of you as new or not think that you're qualified to do it. So you just kind of, you just got to you just kind of have a little bit of confidence in yourself. Like, we all put our pants on. So what? You've got a $3 million house. The guy down the lake has a $10 million house. So let's all just kind of settle down here. And we're just selling real estate, right? Kind of just got to have that thought process.
Again, but I go back to the theme of Kevin alluded to, he brought data so that he showed the client he was prepared to manage the transaction. And more often than not, the client never said to him, oh, have you ever sold a $3 million house? Kevin didn't care because he came with the data to support the idea that he knew what he was doing to navigate the process.
Yeah. And then when you get into the conversation, you might find out that the most important thing is about getting their kids into the new school district by the time the school year starts. And that is all about what your conversation's about, right? But if you didn't ask enough questions and whatnot, you start talking about something that it's not their pain point.
Yeah, totally.
And I was going to say, I would leverage the Keller Williams culture if it's a new agent that's never sold luxury before. This is where the beauty of KW culture comes in. I mean, I know that Karen and our team have mentored other new agents to sell luxury lake homes. So, none of the agents that are top performing agents in our market centers and or are selling luxury are opposed to assisting and giving a hand to any other agents for them to be successful. So you can either come and, ask questions on putting together a comp analysis, have them evaluate, what it is that they're going to be presenting, or even in the conversation with that seller, they can say something along, I've got a great team behind me. I've got mentors in place. If you're concerned that you think I might not have the right experience, there's no other brokerage in the marketplace that works collectively like this. And I've got colleagues that will be helping me and guiding me so that you are well taken care of.
Cool. Love it. All right.
Charlie, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
This hasn't been discussed yet, but I think it's super important. It's kind of the elephant in the room, I think. In terms of attracting new listings, whether you're luxury or not luxury, I think where we've had success is there's a very systematic approach to every single listing, and it's the same no matter what the price point is or what market you're in. So like, we have a transaction coordinator, we have listing manager, we have LSA or listing support agents, but like literally every single time we take on a listing, the way that we collect information, the way that we have a photo shoot taken, the way that we put it in the MLS, everything is exactly the same every single time. So Kevin is, yes, gotten into the luxury market in Chicago because the first time he did a luxury listing, he did an amazing job. And then the second time it was exactly the same. And the third time it was exactly the same. So like every single client gets treated the same way 100% of the time. And I think that that's how you get more listings. I mean, listings are just going to refer listings. And so if you guys don't have a lot of listings right now, your mission could be or should be to build out your systems because you've got the time to do it. And then when you get the listing, it's going to be perfect. And then the next one will be perfect. And they'll just keep referring and building and building and building. And last year, well, over the last two and a half years, I would say, we did 162 listings in 2 markets. And you can't do that. You can't scale a listing business unless your systems are so buttoned up and so like fail proof that you can, that like, you know exactly what you're doing every single time. So I want to put that out there, that should be the mission.
Love it.
It's a work in progress. I mean, every day we work on our listing systems, every single day.
And the other thing that I would, guys, listings and referrals happen like snowballs.
Yeah.
And that if Emily has an unbelievable client experience with Kevin, let's just say Emily's the client and Kevin's the agent. And then all of a sudden, Emily refers Aletha to say, I had an unbelievable experience with Kevin. You should try him too. And then Kevin, because he has the exact same approach, the exact same systems, and he's consistent, whether it's a $3 million home or a $300,000 home, right? Aletha then comes back and said, oh my God, that was a great experience too, because they're consistent in their approach. I think too many agents focus too many times, oh my God, I have to change the world and reinvent the world because I got a $1 million home. No, it's the same from $1 million to 100,000.
Same,
right?
Absolutely.
All right. Same. You're hearing it from everybody. Be consistent in your approach. All right. I'm going to flip this over for the last 5-10 minutes of the conversation. And Aletha, I'll start with you. In a tight market where there's a lot of competition, and here's the funny thing, even though there's a lot of competition, 92% of all sellers only interviewed 2 people. So there's a lot of competition, but they're not really going to a lot of who they're going to. How are you managing 2 objections I want to overcome, or hear how you overcome them? One is commission. How are you defending your commission to earn your value or earn what you're worth? And 2 is when you go on the listing appointment in your first, how are you closing them, or what does that conversation look like in closing them so they don't have to interview agent number 2?
Okay, I hate this question because one of the coaches that I have is the same, her name's Stalle, that Kevin and Emily use, and she asked me this question. And I didn't necessarily have an answer because I get such a strong relationship with people that I'm referred to, or kind of personal touches as I'm coaching them to market, that I rarely sit down and have like a formal listing appointment where I'm defending anything.
Right.
I like it's, I've gone up against a couple agents before, and when I'm rarely asked what my commission will be. I just kind of, say, and I can be flexible with commission, certainly, if I understand their why and, kind of what their motivating factor is and things like that. I'm not a one size fits all kind of person when it comes to that. But I am, like, I would say from the minute I'm introduced to somebody, I'm paying attention. I'm learning their names. I'm being really observational in trying to kind of connect with them on a personal level. So if they, say they had a kid that went to a certain school, and I have a friend who sent her kids, like, do you know this person? So I'm trying to build a connection with people as soon as I meet them, that then there's that trust there that they're actually not interviewing other agents. And then I immediately just kind of start on the process of, of coaching them to market, that I'm not really defending much, because they have such a strong trust with me before that they just wouldn't. And I think a good example is, people are going to go with other agents. Full disclosure, my neighbor's house is listed with another agent right now. I wake up and open my blinds and see another agent's listing sign. It sucks, but he had that relationship built with that agent a year before I even moved in. And so it doesn't really sting, because I know that I do the same thing, where I'm just kind of getting to know people, connecting, sending their kids card, little candy on Valentine's Day in the mail, things like that, where it matters. And then the minute they're ready to list their house, I'm the only person that they would consider calling.
Yeah, I think one of the things, guys, that you're hearing is Aletha doesn't view a lead based on how soon they are to either buy or sell.
Mm-mm.
She views a lead across the entirety of the life cycle, which, hint, hint, for those of you taking notes, the life cycle of a lead, people buy and sell homes about every 5 to 7 years. Okay. 5 to 7 years is the life cycle of a lead. Aletha understands that her relationship with her clients has to span a 5 to 7 year period, knowing that every person is a potential lead. Some people are just closer to decision points than others, but every relationship matters across that.
So to add a good example I have to this is last summer, I was referred to by a client that hasn't bought or sold with me yet. I'm, actively kind of coaching them to market and showing them homes and things. And I got a phone call from a friend of theirs and they were like, hey, we're looking and putting a little bit of money into our house. We're not planning on moving for, another 5 to 7 years. Could you just come over and help us know where to put our money in and kind of what eventually when we do sell 5 years from now, we'll have a return. So I went over, they had 2 little kids, we hung out, we chatted, I gave them some tips. It was, I sent a card in the mail. Great meeting you. Here's the list of the contractors I recommended. Here's 2 sheets of stickers for your 3 and 5-year-old. And 2 months later, that was probably in July, September, I get a phone call saying, hey, I know we weren't going to sell, for another 5 years, but we've decided to expand our family. We're interested. Can you keep our mind up to, our price point's probably around $1 million. Whatever. And I was like, absolutely, let's start, kind of dabbling in things. A week later, they found something off market and they were like, can you help us buy this $1 million home and then sell our house? That was 5 years, all of a sudden went up to 5 months or less. And part of it is because as soon as they were ready to make that decision, and trust me, they are surrounded by agents where they live in the North Shore. They could have called anybody, but it was because I built that connection and showed that I was willing to put in investment before I knew I would get money, maybe 10 years, maybe never down the road. I was the phone call that they made.
Totally. It's a great example of maintaining the relationship. Guys, I'll give you one other little hint, and I don't know the exact stats, so don't quote me on this, but I was reading something National Association of Realtors put out. When a family has a second child, okay, plus or minus 12 months, so the 12 months before they have the second child or the 12 months after they have the second child, there's an 80% likelihood that that person within your database is looking to buy or sell. Just going to tell you right now, if you look at your database and segment out your database, find those. I mean, I was the classic case. We had number 2. We moved within 3 months of having number 2 when we realized, holy cow, the walls were moving in. So good. It's a good, and we thought we were in our house forever. It's a great example, Leafa. All right, Kev, I'll finish or Karen, I'll go to you next, and Kev, I'll finish with you. Karen, anything else from an objection handling standpoint as it relates to commission and understanding your value or articulating your value to defend what it is that you're worth?
I kind of like Aletha. I mean, most of my business is referral. I will say that I do struggle with this a little bit. 6% at the price point that I'm at. We have some very top agents that deal in the luxury market that are at 4%. So I don't like to offer it, but I will reduce my commission to get a listing based on circumstances. Are they selling and then buying? What is the process? Because I've lost some high end where I've done all the work, and for that seller, it really came down to the commission because the other agent is actually, to be honest, a little more successful than me, bigger numbers type thing. So I take it case by case. I think I offer value proposition, which is we stage every house at my expense. That's why we hired a stager to come in for even the small ones to the big ones, but when homes sell in the luxury market as quickly as they are, when a few years ago, I would say to my sellers, hang on, it might take 6 months to a year of me marketing, holding open houses, spending a lot of time. So I'll be totally honest. It's something that I'm working on.
It's all good.
Strong, on that, because it's sometimes I view it as a situation where I have to assess and I have to know who else is coming in. Now, I would never go to the bottom or anything like that, add my value proposition. And I know from that listing, I'm going to get other leads and I'm going to then, be able to list other homes in that market. So it is a little bit of a dance that I do to make sure that, that I still have business too, you know.
What I love about it is that it's real talk. Like, we're not hiding behind the fact that everybody charges 6%. We're understanding that circumstances and situations change and that you're being competitive. And I'm cool with it. And she's willing to admit that it's something that she's working towards, right? Like, Karen's not saying I have this whole thing figured out and I have all the answers. Like, she's just being real to say, like, I'm working on it too, you know? All right, Kev, last one as we wrap it up.
Sure. So yeah, we've all negotiated commissions. It happens, and there's a lot, you know, I'm the first one to have done it, right? Here's where we've been going with it lately. And this was from Keller Williams. I've only done this in one listing appointment, right? But when they pulled the NAR stats at Family Reunion, and they said how historically, you know, 87% of the time, you know, there's been a listing agent on it, right? And in 2021, in the best sellers market ever, it crossed over in like the 91, 92%. So in the best sellers market ever, more sellers ever than in history raised their hand to use a realtor when anybody can sell their house right now. So why does that matter? And how do you work that into your conversations? Because it's all about net. You want to make all these conversations about the net. So if you work that into your conversation, why would they hire a realtor now at a way higher pace than in history? Because right now, and especially Milwaukee, if you get this wrong, now you've got the opportunity to leave so much money on the table, so much money on the table. Forget 1% of $1 million. You get a bad agent, you sell this for $1,025,000 when you could have gotten 1,125. You left $100,000 on the table trying to save 1%. So we need to talk about the net. And that's why we charge X, because our clients net the most. And when you're talking to luxury type people, a lot of them are businessmen and businesswomen, and they get net. They understand net because that's all that. So you want to talk net and net and net and net, and more now than ever, it matters who you hire, right? Because
Can I add to that?
And that's where we're trying to take that conversation.
It's not just net, it's also value. If you can show, like, you know, yeah, you're paying 1% more for the value, but I am communicative, I have a team, I have a system, I will answer my phone. And if I'm not, because I have, you know, something else, I have X, Y, and Z people that also will answer the phone, especially like Kevin said, in that luxury market, people understand I'll pay more for the value. You know, some of these people are paying $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for a stove because they understand that the value is there. And so the same thing, you can get more commission if you have a system in place that shows your value.
Yeah.
Well,
we
and
kind of say net with the least amount of headaches. Those are the two things you want to do. You want to net the most money and get it done as efficiently with the least amount of headaches as possible. And that's what we do.
I've heard, I had the opportunity to sit in on a listing appointment with Jay Schmidt, and the person came up and they said, hey, like, to Kevin's point, every home's selling. Why should I list with you? He goes, let me tell you something. It's easy to get an offer. You pay me to get a great offer. It's easy to get tons of offers. You pay me to identify the best offer that you should take in the right terms with the right contingencies to help, to Kevin's point, get you the highest amount of money and the least amount of headaches. So I totally agree. The net is important. Okay, you're gonna want to cut. Like, I was just in a conversation yesterday with someone, $2.5 million listing. They cut their commission. It cost them the seller saved $6,000. $6,000 on the commission. Yet they undersold the listing on the backside by like 50 or 60 grand. So you saved $6,000 and you gave up 50. The math doesn't work on that.
Yeah. Well, and Charlie too, I think also the one thing that people forget, like sellers especially, is that, you know, selling your home, like getting an accepted offer, evaluating those multiple offers is just the first step in the process. Being able to bring an accepted offer to a successful close as seamlessly and efficiently as possible, and having a great experience by the seller where you've got someone who's providing sound guidance and counsel all along the way. There are how many different contingencies that can break the contract. So having someone who's experienced to do that for you, I think, is also an important talking point on the front end. You know, we've said, you know, we've shifted, we still do all of our marketing. I will say we still go at it the same way that we always have. We don't shortchange it, even if we do reduce our commission a little bit on a, you know, on a luxury property. But we also say to the sellers, you know, we're shifting from that point to making sure that we're moving through the contract expertly and providing you the sound guidance that we can to get it to close. Because I don't know what the number is. There's what, 24% of contract, you know, accepted offers fall out of contract. I mean, so it does happen.
Yeah. And I'll wrap it up with this. Kathy, I think you brought something to the table that we really haven't talked about. You also have to be the most emotionally stable action
Person in the room. Yeah.
And you cannot allow your emotions to get too high or to get too low, because that will impact your ability to win or get future business. So despite the energy that you're getting from your co-broke or the energy you're getting from your client, they want sound advice, and you have to be emotionally stable to provide that sound advice long term to get them the net they want and the terms they desire.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, beautiful people. It has been an awesome panel. Karen, Kathy, Emily, Kevin, Aletha, guys, thank you for pouring into this group. I will make sure that we get the document from Kevin and Emily. I think it was a fantastic few points to share, the 7 points of how they're getting listings. Guys, if you have any questions, we'll be doing it again next month. I love the engagement, love the conversation. We're going to continue to find ways and strategies to help you get more listings. Guys, go
Thanks,
have a great
Charlie. Thank you,
Wednesday.
everybody.
Appreciate it, Charlie.
Yep.